Hi, this is Mike Maloney with Jeff Clark once again. How are you doing, Jeff?
I'm doing great, Mike. It's great to be back with you this week here. So I got to tell you, it was 105 here in California where I live yesterday. So the beard had to come off, and gold and silver were heating up a little bit too, Mike. And this first article of the day we're going to talk about is on from Finance, Yahoo Finance, saying gold heads for the biggest monthly gain on inflation bets. And this is a great chart. It shows the gains that gold had for the month of May, and it was the highest since last July. So it was a good month. And it's claiming that the reason gold rose so much was because investors were flooding into it based on inflation fears. So, Mike, you've called for a deflation before. This
Yeah.
shows inflation might be heating up. So, what's your reaction to this?
Well, I've also talked about indeflation, where you have both going on at the same time. There isn't much that's deflating, though, right now. Everything is inflating. I still believe, absolutely, that there will be. We're going to have a whipsaw effect. Whipsaws, where something, you're predicting one direction and then it goes the other direction for a short period of time and then takes off. Whipsaws are the things that trap the most people. It's very unexpected and but short-lived. And when the almost everything bubble finally pops, and it will someday, when it finally pops, then there's going to be a huge deflation of asset prices. The assets being, not gold and silver. Gold and silver would be, they may do a very, very short term thing like they did back in 2008, but gold and silver took off in October. And then it was the next March before the stock markets finally bottomed. So the gold and silver did a pullback that was very short-lived and then took off like a rocket. And that was just to cover margin liquidation. Covering people having to cover their margin bets. What I see is that when there's a crisis, that's when the banks get scared and they stop lending currency, which creates currency. When they lend currency, they create currency. Now, what most people are not looking at, they go, oh, yeah, well, the Fed can just create all of this currency suddenly. Well, the currency that the Fed creates, base currency, never really leaves the Federal Reserve. That just sloshes around in the accounts that all of the big banks have, the member banks of the Federal Reserve System. So they can create an infinite amount of base currency, and it doesn't have any effect on retail prices on the outside. If the banks are scared to lend, then that base currency that they're creating, that the Fed creates, doesn't ever see the light of day. The only base currency that the public actually uses is when a bank pays the Bureau of Engraving and Printing to create paper dollars, Federal Reserve notes. That's the only base currency that the public ever gets to use, and it's a very small percentage of it. Other than that, if banks get scared and stop lending and stop rolling over all of the short-term loans that are out there, then the currency supply shrinks, so it's real monetary deflation. But regardless, even if the monetary deflation doesn't happen, I do think that we're going to see huge deflation in asset prices, and that could also trigger a short term as demand for goods and services drops because everybody is scared. There will be a short term deflation in retail prices as well, and then it'll be off to the races because the government will be the Federal Reserve and the Treasury will be trying to encourage the banking system to create as much currency as possible and get it out there, do as many loans as possible. And they'll do a bunch of deficit spending. The Fed will, they've talked about directly funding deficit spending. So it's coming. But I think the deflation, I still believe that it's inevitable simply because I haven't seen anywhere in monetary history where a public that is all leveraged out gets rewarded by being able to just pay back cheaper dollars in the future. Usually when the masses have committed mass stupidity, they get punished. And when you're all on one side of the boat, I mean, I just took on some debt, but I took on debt that I can also pay off like that. I've got investments that way exceed the amount of debt. But in my book, I wrote, if you take on debt at the right time before interest rates reverse, it's a very good strategy before a hyperinflation. So I believe that big, huge inflation is coming, potentially hyperinflation, but first some deflation.
Very good, Mike. And keeping with that inflation theme, here's our tweet of the day. And this is from Michaela Arore, if I'm saying it right, Michaela. I love this graphic. It's the cost of breakfast. There is no inflation unless one wants to eat something. And this shows the rise in the raw material costs for things that make up your typical breakfast. So this is the rise in the cost of these things from 2019 to just last week. Orange juice, 11%, milk, 11%, coffee, 51%, pork, 56%, sugar, 35%, oats, 27%, wheat, 31%. Those are the rises in all these raw material costs just for the typical breakfast. And of course, then we can get into other commodities and gasoline and housing. Mike, what's your reaction to this graphic here from Michaela?
The way the government measures inflation, they don't think that people eat or consume energy because that is stripped out of core inflation. And so if you eat, if you eat to stay alive, there is inflation right now. I'm seeing it at the grocery store. And, I've had a need for lumber lately. And it is amazing just what is happening out there when it comes to building materials and such. And so this is part of the indeflation, and this is, people are going to get used to this and prepare for this. And then if you have a big deflation, like right now, if you borrow and spend or borrow and invest, you're going to be able to pay back with cheaper dollars in the future as long as this continues. But if it suddenly reverses, then you're trapped. And the bank may end up owning your house instead of you. So, this is the reason everybody's betting on gold right now. And I'm betting on gold and silver big time. And, it's possible that this could just continue out in the future. But when I study history, I don't see any example of this in the past, just going straight into inflation when a whole society is leveraged out on credit.
Yeah, exactly. The great thing about gold is it doesn't really matter if it's inflation or deflation. It's crisis. And that's when gold is really going to show its true power, in my opinion. So,
well, if you're liking this, catch up and magnify it. So, yeah.
Yes, exactly. Well, if you're liking this video, please hit that like button down below for us and subscribe to our channel by hitting that notification bell. So on to chart of the day, and this is from Gold Ventures. He's a really good follow if you're on Twitter, by the way. I really like him. For silver, this is one to watch. Silver versus the NASDAQ, and he's referring to the ratio of the silver price to the NASDAQ price. The bottom of the arc marked the bear market low in 2020. And you can see this giant arc that's been forming in this ratio for, over a decade now. And you can see the bear market low that he marked. And that green descending line shows that silver relative to the NASDAQ could be about to break out here.
Yeah.
But Mike, I like how he ends his tweet here. Gold and silver are the trade of the decade, 2020 to 2030. So what do you think of that?
That could be. He's got this bowl, this arc bowl drawn there, and it ends in 2030. But if you look at the 2011 part, that's in the bowl. So I don't think things usually speed up toward the end, and I just don't get the feeling that this is going to last I don't think they're going to be able to make this last until 2030. And if they are able to make it last that long, if we get forced into digital currencies and stuff, and there's no way around it, if you want to live, if you want to spend, if you want to be able to drive or travel, if you have to use a digital central bank currency, then they will still be able to manipulate things, and they'll have increased control over your life. But you know what I like about this is he's using a ratio chart. Whenever you use ratio charts, you're revealing the true value of something, not the price, because the price doesn't mean anything. So what this is showing is that silver is incredibly undervalued right now compared to the NASDAQ. And yeah, it's about to do a breakout. I believe that he is correct when it's the trade of the decade, but I don't think we're going to have to wait for the end of the decade. I think this will happen in, I might be wrong, 2, 3, 4 years. I don't think we're going to have to wait until 2030.
Yeah, good point. We don't necessarily know the timing, but I'll take that bet any day and every day on Sunday. So silver outperforming the NASDAQ. So, well, on to some viewer feedback now. And this is a little different we're going to do today. This is from Eric Oberholzer. I hope I'm saying it right, Eric. Mike, I live in Peru. It would be worthwhile to hear your thoughts on the current political economic situation here. The top candidate for the upcoming runoff election in June is talking about nationalizing the industry here, a la Chavez. Chavez was the Venezuela president that did exactly that. And I'm curious especially how that will affect gold and silver. Silver premiums here are currently averaging $20 to $30 plus over spot from what I can see. I'm not thrilled about the leading candidate, but Kiko, I believe, she's the other candidate, and she's currently in second place in polling. And it looks just as bad with her, only from the complete opposite side of the coin. Thanks so much for the effort put into these updates. It's much appreciated. So, Mike, I have some thoughts on this, but do you have some ideas or thoughts on the upcoming election here in Peru?
Well, yeah, it's amazing that politicians are able to sell us this crap decade after decade, century after century.
Yeah.
The more centrally planned an economy is, the worse your life is, the more people live in poverty. And there's so much evidence now, it's irrefutable, yet the public is sold this lie by politicians over and over again. Anytime people are scared, it's easy to lead them down a path of self-destruction, basically. This is absolutely horrible because it's going to destroy Peru. I spoke in Peru back in, I think, 2010. And I was in Lima and had wonderful hosts there. There's some great people, and they're one of the biggest silver producers there is. And silver for $20 to $30 over spot, that's double the price.
Yeah, right.
when you're in a major silver producing country, and I think like Doug Casey once said, that Mexico is also one of the world's largest silver producers. So they are a rich country insisting on being poor.
That's a good way to put it.
This is what's going to happen if they're going to go down the road of socialism.
Yes, well, Castillo is the leading candidate. That runoff election is this Sunday, June 6th. So we'll know here within a week or so if he wins. And he's made some very socialist gestures. When it comes to the mining industry, he said he's already going to raise taxes and royalties on the mining companies there. And a lot of the stocks have sold off in response to him leading. One stock I own in Peru is down 50%. So a lot of investors are getting scared off. And if he does win, even though many of these things would have to go through Congress, he can still put pressure on the Ministry of Mines and things like that. So it's very interesting and an unfortunate thing that they're going socialistic that way, and a lot of investors are frankly scared away from it. At least mining investors are. So,
yeah, if politicians would just tell the truth when they're trying to sell us this junk and say, "Hey, elect me, and your lifespan is going to be shorter, and you're going to lose weight because you're not going to be able to afford to eat." Because that is what's happened in Venezuela. And basically, when he says he's going to socialize or nationalize industries, at that point, that's just going down the Venezuelan road.
Yes. Bottom line, capital goes to where it's treated best, as the saying goes, and that may not be Peru. We'll see. Hopefully it is, but we'll see. So, well, before we get to our meme of the day, and you definitely want to watch this meme that Mike has for us, we wanted to mention real quick that Mike and I are both speaking at the Wealthion conference this coming weekend. It's going to be fantastic. Mike, what are you talking about in your presentation this weekend at Wealthion?
Oh, I'm going to keep that a surprise.
Ah, there we go. Okay.
Well, some of it is going to be about reserve currencies and hyperinflation and so on. So
yes, Mike gave me a little hint of what he's going to talk about, and you'll definitely want to watch it. It's very insightful, something you probably haven't seen or heard elsewhere, frankly. So, and I'll be talking on my favorite subject, mining stocks, and it'll include my favorite mining stock picks for both gold and silver. So you might want to sign up. Today's the deadline, actually, for the early bird sign up. So we'll put the link below to the video here. So, well, Mike, on to our meme of the day. So tell us about this one.
Okay, this is a chart of the results from the Wall Street silverbacks. The Wall Street gorillas here came in and bought a bunch of silver back in February, March, April. And you can see the number of the Wall Street silverbacks on the left-hand side of the chart in red versus the change in COMEX registered category in millions of ounces, the yellow line in the green numbers on the right. And, many of them know who Jeff Christian is. And this is a great picture of Jeff. I'm just going to leave it at that. But, they came very close to being successful in what they were doing, especially on the London Bullion Market Association, the LBMA. There was some hanky-panky that they were doing with their accounting over there. And it was probably to cover up how close the Wall Street silver crowd got to making this system break. So there's the meme.
Yes, very good. Whatever the case may be, we're really happy to see the Wall Street silver crowd growing. So keep up the good work over there. So
yep, keep it up.
Okay, thanks, Mike. This was a great video. I'll see you next time.
Okay, thank you, Jeff. Bye.